The restaurant was glowing with soft golden light, a place where couples leaned close across candlelit tables, laughter echoing gently between polished wine glasses. For most, it was a night of romance, but for Emily, every second felt like a test of her worth. Emily was 30, warm-hearted, and intelligent, but she carried a burden she could never escape: the weight she wore on her body. Years of cruel remarks, stares, and whispered laughter had made her cautious, even fearful, of letting people in. Yet tonight, she had dared to hope. Her best friend had set her up on a blind date. She had spent hours preparing, carefully applying makeup, picking a dress that made her feel pretty, even curling her hair with hands that trembled from nerves. Tonight could be the beginning of something new. When her date arrived, a tall man in a sharp suit, her heart leaped. Maybe, just maybe, this was her chance. But the moment he saw her, his smile faltered. He sat down stiffly, eyes scanning her, as though she were an unworthy applicant for a job. Emily, trying to keep the night afloat, asked gentle questions. She laughed softly at his half-hearted jokes, leaned forward, hoping to find connection. But then, halfway through the appetizer, he leaned back, crossed his arms, and said the words that would shatter her fragile hope. "You know, I should be honest. You're just not what I expected. You're really sweet, but I don't date overweight women. It's not attractive to me. I'm sorry." The words landed like knives. Around them, glasses clinked, couples smiled, and the world carried on as if Emily's chest hadn't just cracked open. She felt heat rise in her face, humiliation burning. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor so no one could see her shame. Her date pushed back his chair, tossed a few bills on the table, and left without a second glance. Emily sat frozen, tears welling in her eyes. She didn't want to cry here, in this beautiful restaurant, in front of strangers. She reached for her purse, fumbling, ready to leave too, but then, a quiet voice spoke from the table next to hers. "Don't let him make you believe you're not enough." Emily looked up, startled. At the table beside her sat a man in his early 40s, distinguished in his tailored suit, his presence commanding yet kind. His eyes weren't filled with pity, but something deeper: respect, maybe even admiration. "I couldn't help overhearing," he continued gently. "Forgive me if I'm intruding. But the way he spoke to you, that's on him, not you. A man who can't see your worth doesn't deserve to sit at your table." Emily blinked, stunned by his directness. "You don't understand. People always see me this way. Too fat. Too much." The man leaned forward. "No. You're not too much. You're more than enough. And anyone who can't see that doesn't have the vision to recognize real beauty." Tears spilled before Emily could stop them. But they weren't just of sadness. There was a strange comfort in his words, like a warm blanket over an open wound. The waiter, noticing her distress, moved toward the table, but the man raised a hand kindly. "She's fine," he assured. Then he turned back to Emily. "My name's Daniel. And if you'd allow me, I'd be honored to join you, not as a date, but as someone who believes you deserve better than to sit alone tonight." Hesitant, her heart bruised, Emily nodded. Daniel slid into the seat across from her. And slowly, as the minutes unfolded, the heaviness inside her began to lift. Daniel was unlike anyone she'd ever spoken to. He listened, truly listened, as she shared bits of her life, her dreams of becoming a writer, her struggles with confidence, her love of art and poetry. He didn't glance at his phone, didn't scan the room. He stayed with her, present, eyes steady and kind. For the first time in years, Emily forgot about her weight. She forgot about how others saw her. She simply existed, valued, seen. Halfway through the meal, she asked, "Why are you being so kind to me? You don't even know me." Daniel smiled softly. "Because once, I was judged for something I couldn't change. People looked at me, and only saw what I lacked, not who I was. I promised myself that, if I ever had the chance, I'd see people for who they are, not what the world says about them." The night ended not with romance, but with something far more powerful: a friendship, a bridge built on kindness and respect. Emily left the restaurant with her head a little higher, her heart a little lighter. What she didn't know, at least not that night, was who Daniel really was. A week later, Emily's phone buzzed with a message from her friend. "Do you know who that man was you had dinner with?" That was Daniel Whitaker, the CEO of Whitaker Publishing. One of the most influential men in the industry. Emily sat frozen, her heart pounding. She thought of the way he had looked at her, not as a project, not as a charity case, but as a person worth knowing. Weeks turned into months. Daniel encouraged her to send her writing to his publishing house. Hesitant, she finally did, and when her first book was published, Daniel stood at her launch, smiling with pride, as though he'd always known she was destined for more. Emily's story didn't end with rejection, it began with it. Because sometimes, when the world tries to break you, life places someone at the next table, who reminds you of your worth, and in that reminder, everything changes. So if you've ever felt too much, or not enough, remember Emily's story. Someone's opinion of you does not define you.